boom, according to that I am live. Welcome, this is Tokyo Tonight. My name is Hiko Simon. It's good to see you all. 10:30 p.m. as always, Japan Standard Time every Sunday night. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Good evening if you're here in Japan, Australia, New Zealand, any one of those sort of time zones that are ahead of us. Yeah, I hope you're having a good week. It's kind of been a good week in Tokyo. Again, not a lot of news, I suppose. Some topics to talk about tonight. But the big thing is, of course, oh, that squeaks a lot. I'm just adjusting the mic here. The COVID situation is definitely improving. My USB light there is flickering a little bit more than it should. That's okay. Yeah, the COVID situation is definitely improving. I'm going to talk about that. It's pretty much like dropped in very much the same manner it did in India, actually. A little bit of a mystery, but it's good news. So between that and vaccinations and everything going quite well in Japan, still racing upwards. We don't seem to have plateaued yet. Large chunks of society still haven't had access to it yet. So there's good news around that. Yeah, big news this week, of course, with the new Prime Minister getting chosen on Wednesday. In spite of the fact my personal preference in the race would be Taro Kono. And he's far and away the most popular candidate. He's not likely to win, and I'll explain why later on. A few other bits and pieces with news and so on. But yeah, Mr. Cordy Chip says I look natural today. I have tried just mixing around with the lights or whatever. Maybe it's probably the lighting. Also, I didn't shave. Maybe I've got that sort of, bald Don Johnson. They used to call it the Don Johnson look when I was a kid, not shaving on purpose. But nowadays, just nobody, it's just basically everyone's lazy. I think that's the reason now. So yeah, anyway, let's get and say hello to everybody and get into it. We'll see how far we get through. We've got Raz Al Ghul first in the chat. Yes, good to see you in here. Let the games begin. Good to have you. We've got Guys English World. Good to have you in here. Shubha standing by in Panama. Good to have our Panama representative in the room and with us from the very beginning. On time indeed. You got a boom emoji there from Guys English World. Good to have you in here. Quint Ranked. Good to see you. Yes, who else we got in here? We've got Kerberos Tenshi. Something about whole life is buffering. Yes, that happens. Yabba Dabba Doo, says Shubis. Nice. We've got Kang and Kodos. You didn't forget today. Indeed you did not. Welcome. Good to have you in here. BTC Chiba, good morning, says BTC Chiba. I think that's good morning. Yeah, good to have you in here. We've got Tokyo 503. Hi folks, hope you're well yourself. Tokyo 503, good to have you here in the comments. A wonderful moderator extraordinaire. We've got Erin in the comments. Excellent to see you, Erin. Good morning. Hope you're having a good day there. Thomas Morris, hey, good to see you, Thomas Morris. Appreciate the interaction on Twitter as well. So definitely good to see you here in the chat. 270 AJ, hi, good to see you, 270 AJ. Everybody get in there, say hello if you haven't said hello. It's always nice to say hello to everyone. It's how I like to kick off the show. It's nice just to see who's in there, so don't be shy, even if you've never said hello before. No worries about the shorts at all. No, everyone's lives are sort of resuming a bit at the moment, so totally understand that. But yeah, remember, as usual, if you want to get my attention or make a comment to draw my, that draws my attention, or ask me for a topic or anything like that, just say my name like Sergeant Bilko just did, and you can see what happens. It flashes Hiko Simon, which means that when after I go through a story and I scan through the comments, it makes it super easy for me to pick out without having to read every single comment, or just read the comments that like flash Hiko Simon at me. So do what Sergeant Bilko did. And yeah, I'll flip through and I'll focus on those comments when I go through. So I do love it when people have questions or topic requests or comments that they want to discuss with me. I'm always happy to take that up. So yeah, Sergeant Bilko, good to see you. Simon no Chanoma, good to hear for nostalgic reasons. Sure, why not? Good to have you in here. Who else we got in here? We've got Kran. Good to have Kran with us. Lee Stayo, we've got glad to see that you're awake and able to join us. And if you're watching this for sleep assistance, then I'm told I'm pretty good at that sort of thing. So yeah, good to have you with us. Remember everybody, by the way. Lisa, is there Lisa? Oh, you mean niece? Or did I miss somebody? Now I'm paranoid that I missed somebody. Believe in yourself. Good to see. Believe in yourself. Yeah. So as usual, remember, if you like what you're watching, please give a like. It helps the video. If you haven't subscribed, I do love it when people subscribe. I think I've got pretty much a plateaued number of subscribers at the moment, but it does help. So remember to support the video by liking if you do like it. And yes, indeed, do love the regular crowd. It's a bit like Cheers, isn't it? It's missing a norm. Everyone's a bit of a norm. But yeah, I imagine Shubis is probably having the best coffee. You say cuppa, so I think of that as tea. Maybe it's tea, but if you're in like Panama, you should be having coffee. And I'd imagine you'd be having the best coffee out of all of us. EDIR. Hi all, good to see you indeed. Bit of a dab there. I like the emoji. Yes. Final call. Say hello. I know people are still rocking in, but I'm ready to jump into the topics. Yeah, I've got a typhoon hitting here this week, but I don't think I included this in the topics. It's typhoon number 16. I like the numbering system. Honestly, once you get used to numbers, it's a bit like with the earthquakes. So like when I'll show that when Victoria had an earthquake earlier this week, and yeah, it was a 5.8 magnitude, and it was apparently quite shallow. So that means it was probably quite a big shake. But the thing is, again, Japan is the only country that actually puts like shake detectors all over the place, everywhere. So you can actually like you do like with the rainfall map, where places can detect how much rainfall there is in an hour or 2 hours in different locations. Japan can detect that with shaking. Magnitude is just the amount of energy released. It's like a bomb going off and saying how big the bomb was, but it doesn't say how much it was actually felt in any location. So you just rely on people saying, yeah, my cat was pretty scared, and showing pictures of bricks and so on in the street, but you don't know how bad it actually felt. Japan is the only country that actually measures how much earthquakes actually shake, like on the ground, at least in any meaningful way. So I found it really frustrating. But there again, of course, Australia doesn't have earthquakes. That's the whole point. That's why it was news. So it's hard to tell. Very glad to see that there wasn't any loss of life or whatever, but I imagine that was pretty disturbing for people in Australia having an earthquake. But yeah, just like Japan has these awesome scales for everything, that kind of makes sense once you get used to them, like the shaking scale. Typhoons, we always used to call typhoons, well, they used to be named after women, which is kind of an awful practice of just naming natural disasters, after women, kind of sexist. And they were always basically like white. I mean, they were always named after white women, I suppose. They were always like Judy and Mary and, Rhonda and so on. Name them just like that. So they started getting a little bit more culturally diverse and so on lately. And I appreciate the efforts, but seriously, Japan just fixes the problem. They're just numbered. Right now we're having typhoon number 16, and it's, we're up to number 16 already. And that's right. And out of those, you can count how many of them hit Tokyo. And, we've had a couple. There's another one that's heading towards Tokyo right now. But I must admit, I was thinking tonight, if I had to name a typhoon, just given how silly the whole naming thing is, if I had to give one a name, what would I do? And for some reason, I remember the final scene of Ghostbusters where it's like you're not supposed to name it, but someone accidentally names it because, choose your destroyer, and someone, because it's going to be offensive, whatever it is, and someone picks Stay Puft the Marshmallow Man. That'd be a good name for a typhoon, right? I mean, you might as well. It'd be, pretty much if you're going to choose a person's name. Oh, and there it goes. It ran out of power. I should have charged it before the show. Okay, well, a little bit less light, but we'll live. It looks a bit darker now, doesn't it? That light was working really well. That's what I get. Oh, I'm so tempted to fix it as well. And I can fix it. The USB is right there. I can totally fix this. Oh. And I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking this is how things always go wrong, by fixing the technical problems live on the show. This is a feature of the show for those who are not familiar. I have technical problems, but I also fix them. Pretty sure I can fix this one. Give me a sec. This is the light. It's a pretty impressive light, right? I mean, it's pretty compact, and it charges by USB. Oh, there it is on top. So here we go. If I just charge that, boom. Okay. So that is now charging. Will that work? Yeah, it won't work right away, unfortunately. I've got to let it get a little bit of juice. I'll tell you what, I might turn that on in a bit. Get some better lighting on. I do appreciate it. It does actually stop the white balance flipping all over the place. So anyway, we'll do that. It's a feature. It's not a bug. But in any case, yes, I must admit, it's pretty silly giving names to typhoons that essentially just ruin people's lives, right? So I always thought that the Hurricane Echo, thank you, Mig. Yeah, so, exactly, right? Exactly. It's pretty depressing to be the person who it's named after. So there you go. I look like a zombie now. Thank you. Thank you for the compliments. One last look at the comments. Who else has rocked up before we kick off the show? We've got the Condor. Good to see you. What is wrong with New Zealand and Australia? Give people back their freedom. I assume you're talking about the lockdowns in both countries, which also, I must admit, even to me. I mean, look, in New Zealand, well, the point is, through having fairly short-term lockdowns, they've been able to have, like, normality, relatively. People going around without masks and so on, and having big sporting events, and I'm pretty jealous of that. I mean, that looks like a good sort of a win in New Zealand, but the lockdowns are pretty harsh. Frankly, I've said this before, I'm kind of glad that I'm here. I mean, honestly, Tokyo, Japan has not been as badly affected. It's been badly affected, but not as badly affected as other countries. And we've more or less accepted living with it and just kind of managing it. And this is part of what I'm going to talk about with tonight. There are restrictions. You do go out with masks and so on. Masks have pretty much become normal. A lot of social distancing behaviors become normal. I haven't worked in the office in 2 years, just about. It seems like that. It's 1.5 years, I suppose, but it's more than that now. So, we accept a degree of restriction just in order to have general, more normalcy, not complete sort of, police controlling the streets. But there again, I mean, it seems like in Australia and New Zealand, you kind of need a bit more coercion because, there are people who just like want to break. If you create laws, there are lots of people in those societies that just want to break them straight away. So yeah, coffee from Colombia, says Mr. Cordy Chap. Why not? I'm sure Colombian coffee is wonderful. Who else we got in here? We got the Condor, like leaving your house. I mean, I can't speak, honestly. I haven't been in New Zealand in 21 years. It looks lovely. The postcards look great. Tawaiwai, good to see you, Tawaiwai. Maybe better with no light. Hey, thank you. Maybe I should just wear a paper bag. Who knows? I mean, you know what? I mean, seriously, that would probably actually help the ratings. I could become the paper bag guy channel. Who knows? Cobra's Tenshi's tagged me with something in Japanese. Shindo 1. Yeah, very cute. Yeah, well, if that's, I mean, if that affects you, then I suggest you have other problems, Cobras Tenshi. But yeah, very clever. Who else we got in here? We got, I think I've said hello to everybody. Anyone else? Final call. Paper bag, indeed. First topic, ETA 3 minutes. Okay, let's dive into it. Just gonna see if I can turn on my light now. Oh, come on. Is it that it's not charging properly? That is funny. Okay, I'm going to figure that one out. Yeah, see, now you can see the white balance flipping around. It's annoying. Okay, anyway, into the show. Let's kick it off. It's 10:45. Let's see if I can beat 2 topics before the top of the hour. Although, of course, I never do that because I've got my biggest main topics before the top of the hour. But there again, I mean, there's not a lot to say. The first thing is, there is a funny thing which annoys me, which I've talked about before, but it is just remarkable how COVID shows up that you that people are more willing to trust suspicious, negative information points, even if they're complete crap, than anything that's slightly optimistic or, is forward-looking and scientific. And this is so true around COVID numbers. There was somebody who was getting a lot of retweets from a lot of people I consider to be quite smart the other day. It's talking about how the testing, the positivity rate in testing in Tokyo was 45% the other day. I was like, dude, how did you get that? There is, a positivity rate number that's published every day. And it's right now, it's 4.7%. WHO considers 5% to be indicative of sufficient testing taking place. And just to be clear, the line on the graph is that blue dotted line there. And during the last peak that we had for a time, when we had 5,000 cases per day, the positivity rate was 25%, which indicated that this is the time that actually they stopped contact tracing because they were too overwhelmed. The testing centers couldn't keep up, and hospitals were actually not testing people. So, yeah, clearly, when you have a 25% positivity rate, you're having a complete, collapse of your detection and testing system. So it was likely much higher than the numbers that were even coming through at 5,000 cases a day in Tokyo. However, now it's down below 4.7%, and the daily cases lately are around in the 200s in Tokyo. So, a lot better and a lot more reliable in terms of numbers. So how did this person get 45%? And it's kind of funny because this person said 45% was retweeted everywhere. And it was because they were taking the single day. So if you take it on the weekend where, a lot of the testing centers are closed or testing much fewer people, the positive numbers that come out every day are the results, which take 3 days to come out. So on a Sunday, when they're not testing anybody, and you combine that with the positive numbers that come out from Friday, for example, it means, or particularly on Saturday, it means that you're going to get this huge overlap of people from, you're going to get all the positive cases from Friday and the very few cases on Saturday, and that's going to cause that discrepancy, which is why the positivity rate is based on a 7-day average, because that's the only way that you can actually get that to be accurate, because the test results come back on a different day to the day that the tests come out. And, definitely the fact that they stopped testing and contact tracing impacted the numbers, but a lot of people are much more fast to believe that, this is all a conspiracy where the government stopped contact tracing and testing on purpose in order to manipulate the numbers. And for what purpose, you might ask, and some people seem to think it's got something to do with the LDP leadership election that no one can vote in. I'll talk about this in a moment. Why would that make any difference? The Prime Minister isn't even running in the election, so there's no benefit for the current Prime Minister of doing that. But again, people just want to make up conspiracies like right away that are just complete BS. The data is all there and it all makes sense, and it actually says that, the numbers are definitely coming down. It's not clear why they're coming down so fast, although that is what happened in India. The very similar graph. It spiked up and it spiked down. The duration of the wave that we've had, this fifth wave, is about the same as the previous wave. So it seems to be something with the nature of the disease that, it comes and goes in these sort of waves that seem to be pretty equal duration regardless of the volume of the spike. But the indications are that the positivity rate is good, which means that the testing is while they're not randomly testing the whole population, they are getting sufficient cases. And it proves reliably that the numbers really are coming down. And I don't think these numbers ever proclaim to be catching every case of COVID in Tokyo. But certainly if you've got a serious case that requires hospitalization, it's going to be included. People who are asymptomatic or have mild symptoms, there's probably a very large number of cases like that are not getting captured in these statistics because, frankly, the government isn't looking for them. They will contact trace. They will offer testing in schools. I've heard of exceptions to this, by the way. But generally speaking, there was a case at my son's school. And they basically had the whole school year, just for that year, not for the whole school, could come in the next day, get tests, go home, and they checked all the other kids, and all the other kids in the year came out clear. It was just the one kid, and they then after that said, okay, everyone can come back to school. And other years they've closed down years more, for other incidents. But, you can get the test kits. The idea that tests are being withheld, you can get tests like in any pharmacy now. And these test results reflect both the results from private and public testing. So, I think the data is pretty reliable. I mean, I hate to ruin people's negativity bonus for, wanting to find out that the government's hiding the bodies and, is manipulating the data for what? Why are they doing that? I mean, I know that sounds better, and I know it makes you sound like some sort of shill for the, trying to protect the LDP or something by saying that, no, it appears that cases are going down, but they are. It's just the science, right? And honestly, people, even well-intentioned people who think that they, who are saying that we have to treat this as the worst emergency in the world, which we of course kind of do, at least second to climate change perhaps, but, who anyone... there was this brigade of people who were angry at news stories that were sharing information about likely side effects of the vaccine, saying, no, you shouldn't share information on side effects of the vaccines because then people won't get vaccinated. This is just backing the anti-vaxxers. Like you're in some sort of war. against anti-vaxxers, and you're not allowed to share any information that's not, even if it's true, that's inconvenient. It's like, it's basically, this is what I see in Japan is, in spite of a high rate of skepticism and caution around the vaccines, there is also a very high vaccination rate across all age groups, and they still haven't run out of the demand for it yet, which says that even with all the information about all the side effects and so on of vaccines, people are still taking them. They're just basically, people here can be relatively trusted to act maturely and responsibly with complete information, good and bad. I worry about the information war kind of thing and the kind of hysteria around different types of information, as well as the readiness to believe negative information, which I think just primes people for accepting what people say on Facebook and Twitter and so on, what they just make up. Just get things from first sources, and if you don't trust those first sources, well then screw you, shut up, don't talk, because you're causing information pollution with your speculation. Look, the news is good. Sorry if that disappoints a lot of people, but yeah, there are questions being asked, even in the general media and so on. Why is it going down so quickly? And it's a bit of a mystery. Some people are suspecting it's something to do just with the cycle of the virus itself. But it's exactly the same as it's been with Delta, where Delta originated in India and other places. And what we know is that it's going to come back again for a sixth wave. We know that. So the best thing that we can hope to do, and if the waves are following the same cadence, it's probably going to be in November. And all that we can hope is that everyone is vaccinated enough that when the next waves hit, that we'll get results like we've gotten in countries with high vaccination rates, which is that, yeah, a lot of people will still get it, but the rate of serious cases and deaths from the future waves will be less. That's the hope. Again, a lot of the sort of morons and so on who are sort of anti-vax, saying, hey, look, in UK, most of the people catching it now are vaccinated. That's because everybody's vaccinated. And they're getting much milder. There's much fewer serious cases happening as a result, and that's exactly where we want to be, and that's exactly when we can go back to normal and start traveling and doing stuff normally again. So that's what I'm hoping for anyway, and in this case anyway, it looks like it's good news. The other good news, of course, is that the vaccinations continuing to go up by 1.5 million shots a day again. A lot of people upset that it took Japan so long to get started. Again, I mean, I still accepted that Japan just didn't have them because it doesn't make the vaccines. It had to get in line after the countries that made them to get them, and it did get them, and now the rates are 56,559,895 shots given. Something like 56% of the whole population has still had one shot, and remember, most of the country, people under 30 have still not even, it's not even their turn to get shots yet. So, the vaccination rates across age groups are pretty high. For the over 65s, it's something like 90%. So Japan has actually got as high a vaccination rate as, anywhere in the world, and it's clearly showing results. So, when you look at the breakdown of the deaths, it's actually the elderly are among the least affected group, and that clearly correlates to the high vaccination rate. So it clearly shows that in spite of the news I shared earlier that claimed that natto also does what the mRNA viruses vaccines do and attacks the fork hands of the virus, don't get natto, get a vaccine. It proves that they work. So that's all pretty good news. So that's what's happening with COVID-19. And look, to me, this means this is a good sign that we could be looking at things like resumed travel and people being able to get back into Japan. This all adds up to a lot of the sort of lockdown and insanity we're having. This is how, we get through that, and it ends, I'd hope, around the end of the year. I guess we'll have to see how the next wave goes. Of course, anything can happen, right? This thing keeps mutating and we get these new variants and so on. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen, but I think now there's more reason than there's been for a long time to be optimistic. Will the light turn on? Come on, it should turn on. Am I pressing the wrong button? Sorry, I'm unintentionally giving you a shot of my hairy arm there. You know what? I think it won't work while it's charging. Oh, there it is. Did I charge it enough? Boom. I guess we'll find out. Better lighting. Okay, into the comments. The Condor, please share your option, your opinion, and tag Hiko Simon. He'll be happy to respond. I will be happy to respond. What is your... Hiko, I would like to call you. I have a differing of opinion on all of this. Don't call me. You can comment. Ada Void, good to see you, Ada Void, by the way. And boom, he just bought 1,000 shares of Natto stock. Thomas Morris, yeah, don't do that. Seriously, medical research around Natto has previously claimed it improves IQ, it cures cancer. Now they're claiming it might fend off COVID-19. That's what Natto manufacturers do. I would hesitate on buying the Natto stocks. Just wait and see. But yes, Mr. Cordy Chap, yeah, I wasn't going to read that out loud. I mean, maybe accurate, but I can't attest to that. So yeah, the Condor, you're welcome to comment. Just tag me if you want me to notice it, because otherwise I'm going to have to scan over it. Is it just me? Does anyone get annoyed by the unsolved? I can solve that on the air sometime if you like. I haven't done it for a while, and I have to remember the logarithms again. But I can do it. Inconvenient truths will not be tolerated. Indeed. Here we go. The Condor. Americans have good reason to distrust the government. Humps. Hey, that's all right. I'm tempted to start singing the Humps song. Distrust the government. Do what you like, but seriously, like the states where people are refusing vaccines or whatever because they don't trust the government. That's Darwinism in operation. So yeah. News is rolling along. Yes, it is. Guys, English World. You've always wondered if the painting in the background is based on the milkshake you can get from a dairy in New Zealand. Oh, you know what? I was actually, there's the song Lax by Josh 685, I think it is, from Manurewa. And there's a scene where they got the longest milkshake, the New Zealand milkshakes, and they got the cups in it, and that was like, yeah, that's like a fixture, isn't it? It's got nothing to do with it, by the way. That's an American friend who painted that, and I liked it, so I bought a print. But now that you mention it, that thing never occurred to me before. But yeah, the longest drink, the old New Zealand milkshake thing, man. When I grew up in Waihuru, I lived in Waihuru for a bunch of years. The worst town in New Zealand, as Guys English World knows, and a lot of my Maori friends would get lunch just from the fish and chip shop beside the school, which I was jealous of. I thought I was the one losing out, having a packed lunch with vegetables and sandwiches and so on. I was jealous of my Maori, but they would have like a milkshake and a hamburger every day. Obviously, really not the best in terms of nutrition, I can now see looking back, but I was jealous as hell, and they always had those things everywhere at school. So yes, those are a New Zealand fixture, aren't they? The Condor. Japan's deference to authority is an undesirable trait. Japan's not deferential to authority. There are arsehole lawbreakers everywhere in Japan. I think that's a stereotype. It's not deference to authority. It's just people are thoughtful about. I mean, again, the skepticism rates around COVID-19 and vaccines were as high or higher here than in America, actually. But the point is, people ended up making informed decisions to get vaccinated. I've heard that people saying that Japanese are so compliant and deferential, and they're not. Believe me, and there are of course anti-vax nutsos, everywhere here, but they just don't have as much sway. I think that's a stereotype that's incorrect, but that's my personal opinion. Of course, you're welcome to yours. Tim the Asian Ink, boom, 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 boom. Good to have you in here. Gilded Nerd, howdy all. Good to see you, Gilded Nerd. Glad you can make it. What is the giraffe's name? That is, asked Kerberos Tenshi. That is Hopi, the hopeful giraffe. Again, it's as much the name and the caption. I just like it. Ken Tanaka painted that. Actually, I think it was his twin brother, David Yuri. But actually wonderful. In fact, was it signed? Was it Ken? It was Ken Tanaka, 2009. Ken Tanaka, 2009. Signed by Ken Tanaka. I'll show you up close sometime, but it's awesome. I'm a huge fan of Ken Tanaka. If you don't know who Ken Tanaka is, look it up. You'll find him on YouTube. He's got a channel. Don't know if he ever found his parents, but he did find his long-separated twin brother. Thomas Morris. Yes, definitely not getting through 2 topics before 11 o'clock. There it goes past now, but it's okay. I don't have any topics tonight. I know I've said that before. AV84K, you don't know that Bill Gates has put 5G nanochips in those vaccines to make you magnetic. Hey, I'm just finding the improved internet reception and the ability to not drop my forks just wonderful. Honestly, I'm living with it. Kangen Kodos, water that plant for us. It's not growing, or buy a new one. Each week that's a little larger. Oh, that one there, that plant I've had for like 5 years. I don't think it's going to get any bigger, but I take pride. I water it every 2 days. It's actually doing a lot better. I brought it home from work. I kept it on my desk at work just for a little bit of a reminder of like what the planet Earth looks like. And it's actually surviving a lot better. I think it gets better light in here. Maybe it's my USB light. I don't know, but it's green. It's going strong. Thank you for noticing the plant. We've got Odie Jr. late. Boom, you work late, but you are here. I'm glad you made it, Odie Jr. Welcome always. The Condor, the conviction rate in the criminal justice system is near 99%. Yeah, that means don't screw with the police in this country. One example of it's not deference to authority. There's no jury trials. The judges just do whatever the cops say. That's not deference. That's just the judges being owned by the police. You do not want to ever get in trouble with the police here. I don't think that's an example of deference to authority. Again, you're welcome to think that they're conformist, but I think that that's a misinterpretation of the culture, which probably is based on me living here 21 years and probably just maybe I've gone too native, but in my opinion, that is not, and that is a problem, and but it's a totally separate problem. That's why people here avoid the police, even for routine stuff. Like people don't make friends with police, people don't talk to police, people don't help police with investigations because they don't. As if the police decide it's you are screwed. I talk about this regularly on the show. Don't mess with the police in Japan because you'll get convicted. The Jvlog, hey, good to see you. Salutations. The Jvlog, I'm caught up on comments, interesting comments. By the way, I do the Condor. We don't have to agree on everything. In fact, I like disagreeing, but all in good sport. I actually encourage you. Please keep commenting and please keep disagreeing. Don't feel compelled at all, and please don't get upset by me disagreeing with you. I actually prefer. I like a good discussion. So keep them coming. I do appreciate it. Next topic, the new Prime Minister. The new Prime Minister. So I should explain. This is going to happen on Wednesday. As we know, there are going to be. The Four Musketeers are running, but in fact, hopefully I can get a photo. There they are. So right now, Taro Kono on the far left of the picture there, he's like the most popular in popularity polls, 47% support versus 11% support for Kishida, the guy next to him, and then you've got Takaichi, he's got kind of 5% of like the right-wing loony sort of votes, and then you've got like 2% for Noda, who's basically just trying to throw ahead and probably to set up a future run. And actually it seems doesn't have any real support at the moment. So you'd think based on the popularity polls and whatever, and based on just being seen to have a pretty good track record with things like the vaccinations and so on, that Taro Kono's sort of it's his role to get. The thing is though, the way that the LDP election works is that basically this is an internal party election, and it's voted where first of all there are something like 386 like representatives of the LDP in Parliament and other sort of governments in the upper house and lower house, and then they'll have another 385 votes from local LDP chapters. And it seems that among the LDP chapters, that reflects the general populist popularity. Everyone likes Kono more, but within the LDP inside like Parliament, everyone's in like these gangs, these factions where they already sort of block vote and they already sort of have decided who they're backing. And among those factions within Parliament, Kishida has like 3 times more votes already secured than Kono. So Kono's only hope. And this is the same way that Koizumi got elected actually as well. Koizumi was an outsider. He didn't have a lot of factional support, but he was so popular in the electorate that basically the local chapters, the grassroots LDP members, were the ones who sort of voted him to be prime minister. And he turned out to save the LDP. He was so popular. And people voted for him because they wanted him to change the LDP, which was ironic. He saved the LDP by basically campaigning against the traditional LDP, which was kind of weird. And that's what I think I'm seeing, that Kono might end up being a lot like Koizumi. And Koizumi, by the way, failed a couple of times. This was another point. In fact, Koizumi, on his 3rd run, I believe it was, when he became prime minister, he said, look, I'm not going to run any more times. If you want me to be prime minister, this is the last chance. And that kind of persuaded a lot of the grassroots to vote for him like en bloc, and they overvoted the LDP members in Parliament, and he became the most popular prime minister Japan's had probably post-war. So Cornell's not in that situation yet. He's in that first run. But the thing is, although Cornell is likely to actually get the most votes in the first round, in order to win the party president role, which makes you the prime minister, you have to have 50% or higher majority. And what looks most likely is that no one's going to get that in the first round. It's going to go to a runoff, a second round. And if it goes to a second round, and so basically this depends really on how much votes Takaichi and Noda get. If they get enough votes to stop Kono from being able to get or it seems like actually Kishida, if they get enough votes to be able to stop either of the top two contenders getting more than 50%, it goes through to a second round. And in that second round, the local representatives go from being 385 local representatives, matching the number of people in Parliament, to being only 47. So basically, the parliamentary members suddenly get to decide if it goes through to a second round. So if it goes through to a second round, it's going to be Kishida. So Kishida's game is probably, honestly, to try to hope that Takaichi and Noda draw votes away from Kono, so that he doesn't win in the first round, or he doesn't win outright. He doesn't get 50%. And if that happens, it seems almost certain, then Kishida will pick it up in the second round, even though he's much less popular than Kono. So it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of parliamentarians who are sort of reading the room and saying that if it's Kishida, there might be a backlash against the LDP for being out of touch, for picking the less popular politician as leader. And you might ask, why would a party pick a politician who's less popular? But again, this is Japanese politics. It's as much as about making sure that your faction is on the winning side and gets lots of influence and power. They get lots of cabinet seats where they can send money back home to their constituents. It's as much about that as it is making sure that you get re-elected and you have the right leader. So the members who are worried that picking the wrong person will mean that the LDP will do badly in the election in November and they might lose some seats. Will support Kono, but basically people who are hoping to be on the right team and thinking that just any new prime minister will be good news are supporting Kishida. And it looks like Kishida is going to be like the institutional vote. So, it will be interesting to see. Again, if I had to choose from this bunch, I would pick Kono. But when you look at the way that the election works, it's going to be pretty hard for Kono to win. So it'll be interesting to see. Meantime, the opposition has been desperately trying to get attention with headlines, and they are doing that by saying that government moves to reduce the quarantine period from something like 14 days to 10 days for people who can prove that they've been vaccinated is going to let in lots of dirty foreigners. They didn't say foreigners. They said that people entering the country, it's going to increase the risk of there being other variants being brought into the country, and it's going to put the populace at risk. So they're basically attacking the easing of immigration restrictions, which is being done on a test basis to see about reopening immigration into Japan. So it seems that although typically the constitutional Democrats and communists, just for being the people fighting against the LDP, are the ones who seem to by default get most of the support on Twitter. Well, here's some news. The communists and the CDP are right now campaigning against letting dirty foreigners into the country in retaliation for the LDP's plans to ease immigration. So there isn't really anyone to like at the moment. It's pretty much everyone's bad. I mean, it's politics, right? Don't get too optimistic. The good news is that they are powerless and they're not likely to have any sort of influence. And frankly, the communists are never going to be in charge. And if the CDP, who are polling single digits at the moment, but even if they were to miraculously win the next election, they're going to do exactly what the Ministry of Justice and Immigration Department tells them they should do. And they'll do the same thing. So basically, this is just sort of trying to grab attention at the moment, because all the media attention is going towards the LDP race at the moment. It's a lot of free publicity for the LDP, which is working great for them just ahead of the election in November. So, yeah, really, that's the worst thing for foreigners at the moment, but it's pretty much impotent rage. So, that's pretty much it. Back into the comments. What's going on in here? Anyone got anything for me? Hopi the giraffe is the Lauren Hill of my channel. Oh, Lauren Hill, nice job. I've heard that the Fugees actually got back together this week, which is remarkable. Love that track. Got it on vinyl and MP3. Got Iraq 299. Glad that you made it. Better late than never indeed. Good evening to you. I think I got the salutations from Jvlog. So let's go back down. Who else has got a comment for me? Hope I didn't annoy the condo. I was expecting more comments back. I may have scared them away. You can all disagree with me. That's what you're supposed to do. The red value, hey Simon, what's the current number of first vaccinations in Japan? I don't have it to hand, but the total number I believe is, you know what, it's fully vaccinated. I believe it's 56% are vaccinated at least once, and actually like something like 90% of people over 65 are fully vaccinated. So it's pretty good rates, and still going at 1.5 million shots per week. So it's making good progress. Believe in yourself. I see what you did there. Yes, indeed. Naughty by nature. Sadiq Hakanguris. Hey, good to see you from Miami. Nice to see you there in the comments. And boom, scrolling. Remember, if you want to get my attention with any of these, just shout my name. Say my name, and I'll see it. But I don't see any there, so I'm gonna move ahead. Let's move beyond that. Just a new story I noticed before this, that apparently the train operators, JR and the metro operators, were talking about, particularly with the Olympics, they were talking about adding facial recognition software to all the cameras that are all over the place in the train system in Japan. This is partly a legacy from the 1995, I think, sarin gas attacks in Tokyo, where they put a lot of cameras in all of the stations. The condor, sorry, the condor, I appreciate you spreading it out. But remember, you are welcome to comment, okay? So please don't take anything I say back to you the wrong way, but it's welcome. Anyway, so after the sarin gas attacks in the 90s, they did put a lot of train cameras, all over the train stations, partly to be able to monitor and hopefully try to catch these people in future, identify future terror attacks on the subway infrastructure. And there were plans with the Olympics, again, with anti-terrorism preparations, to put artificial intelligence software, facial recognition software, apparently into the train systems, and to be able to recognize certain individuals and be able to block them or track them on our train systems. The train operators said that they've decided not to proceed with it because there isn't a clear societal consensus on what appropriate use of facial recognition and tracking is yet in Japan. And that's a fair enough point. I work in this field in part, and I am not of the opinion that all facial recognition is bad and it should just be inherently outlawed. I think that there are legitimate uses for it. There are uses where it's been successfully used right now in airports. I mean, apart from the fact that it can... Look, I will take a facial recognition cue any day of the week at an airport if it gets me through a line faster. Seriously, in the end of the day, it's just a machine automated way that speeds up what a person does anyway. They look at you and they recognize your face, and they'll either say that your face looks like the face on the passport, or they may recognize you as the jackal or something like that, or as Kim Jong-un's brother, as once happened when he tried to go to Disneyland in Japan. That was a human facial recognition. They pulled him out, detained him, and sent him back. He had a Dominican passport. But you can automate that, and why not automate it? Particularly when you're talking about things like human slavery, modern slavery, human trafficking, sex slavery, so on. When human traffickers move people through airports, and you have systems that you can rescue these people and identify their traffickers going through airports, do it, right? Abducted children and so on. I mean, that's a legitimate use. There's another thing that for casinos, I know people who have been banned from casinos, and they probably needed to be banned from casinos, right? It's a necessary thing. That you can have people who are addicted or whatever, or who get into trouble or whatever. And many years ago, I've heard of this happening, and apparently it just is that the staff they have to learn the faces and recognize these people when they try to get into the casinos and stop them. And of course, they have cameras and everything to help. But again, you can automate that, and just the same way as people can through their behavior or through addiction or other reasons, they can lose their privilege of being able to go into a casino. I think being able to use a train system. You have a case like you had the other week where somebody took sulfuric acid and, basically, and it sounds like, what it was over? This was a person from an Okinawan university who apparently had a bunch of, sort of issues growing up. And apparently one of his kohai didn't call him son. He used just a casual name for him. He called him Hiko instead of Hiko-san. And he was like a 1-year kohai. This guy followed him to Tokyo, followed him on a train, and then poured acid over his face and burned half of his face off, and basically nearly killed this person. He's going to survive. But he poured a bottle of was it hydrochloric acid over him or something like that. Someone like that shouldn't be allowed to ride the train. I don't want to be on a train. It's bad enough that the trains are already overcrowded. If you've got people who are convicted of molestations or assaults, the number of assaults that happen against train staff and so on. The train companies, at the moment, of course, they can't identify and pick out people going through the ticket gates to stop them. But I believe that, there should be consequences if you assault train staff or passengers, or you carry out particular violent attacks, or forget about it. What if you kidnap somebody? You should be able to, pick out and stop those people. And normally you would hope that the humans would have enough ability to be able to pick that out and do that themselves, but they can't. There are too many people using the trains. But that shouldn't be a protection. So, in my opinion, you're right. I don't think they should use it for everybody. I don't think they should be using it to catch people with outstanding speeding tickets or anything like that. And I understand that's the concern about having the rails around the technology. But I do think that there should be the ability for train companies to refuse service. Frankly, that's impossible for them to do without tools like this. So, and the other thing, of course, is that, you have these supermarkets in America, and they're coming out in Japan right now, where you can actually shop without even needing to show your wallet. You can just walk in, pick stuff off the shelves, and go out, and it'll recognize you, and it will charge your account for what you took. Why not let us use trains like that? Walk in, use the train, let it follow you. You can just get charged for what trains you caught. I mean, that's where things are probably going anyway. And if we can, make it harder for criminals and obnoxious people and antisocial people to do that, if you could ban people for a particular time, do all of that too. I think that's a good thing, personally. I know, I'm sorry if I come across as fascist for that, but I think that there are legitimate uses for this, which are basically, as I say, just automating what people can and should be doing anyway, and they just can't do because it's just too many people going through. So yeah. Anyway, that's I thought it was an interesting story, which I had an opinion on. I'll come back. I'll just check scrolling back up to see the comments that are in here. We've got the I'm glad I didn't scare you away, and I do appreciate it, Kondo. I do appreciate you spreading things out. Corona, red value. Corona's going to be over in a month. It won't be over in a month. Those vaccine numbers are fantastic, but they're going like every wave. To be clear, there will be another wave in November. There'll be a sixth wave. They're already talking about, is it going to be a moo wave? Is it going to be, is it going to be another Delta wave? No one knows, but there's definitely going to be another wave. The hope is that the vaccination numbers will be so high that it will not have as many serious cases or deaths. That's the hope. And if we get through the next wave with fewer deaths, that will be good, and that will signal that we can start to cautiously loosen the sort of quasi-restrictions that Japan has. But we'll see. The numbers are good at the moment, but we've learned that they do bounce back up again. They've gone down like this before. But I am optimistic. Not that much, Jess. Good to see you, by the way. EDIR, I don't think that the sarin gas attack would have been prevented by facial recognition, though. I think you're right. Again, they put the cameras in after because they thought, okay, if they had those cameras there, it would have made it faster identifying who did it and catching them. Facial recognition is only something that's come out now. Well, so I think the intention was around the Olympics that they could have watch lists, for example, travel watch lists, terror watch lists, and they could, if they were known or tracked terrorists. And this is the sort of thing that's happened in the UK. I mean, the terror attack that happened in Auckland recently, there was someone who was actually being monitored, actually being trailed by police at the time that he did a stabbing attack in the supermarket. There are people that you can follow and trigger warnings for and so on. You're right, though. I don't know that it could have stopped the sarin attack, but it'd be another tool. But I think that to me, it's more the person who goes and punches. If you punch up, if you're drunk and you assault someone who works at a train station, I think that they should be able to ban you for like 2 years from using a train. Get a bicycle, seriously, even if you're drunk or whatever. There's so people get away with so much violence. You see the posters in train stations about, it's wrong to be violent against train staff. And that's true, but, can you imagine working at a train station and knowing that the a-hole who, punched you out the other night is still there the next day and knows that they got away with it, and that happens so much? I'm thinking more of those cases, but, it was there actually for anti-terror sort of moves. So we'll see. You don't want to pay for Evil Twins travels. doppelgangers. I must admit, I'd be curious about that. Well, I don't know how that's going to work with the supermarkets either. It's a brave new time. It might just be that there'll be something, other way to do it, where you tap in and out with the phone, and then that triggers the camera. But we'll see. Like I said, it's all brand new technology. The Condor. Can permanent residents in Japan who pay into the national pension system withdraw out of it at retirement? Yes, they can. In fact, you don't even have to be a permanent resident. If you pay into it and you stay here until you retire, you can get it back. The problem is, for what you're asking, if you're like me and you've lived here more than 20 years and you leave, if I decide to leave like one day before I become eligible for my pension, which at the moment is 65, but is probably going to be 75 and might not be any time at all by the time that I leave, you only get 3 years worth of pension contributions back. So the government just pockets the other 18 years because they don't have enough to cover all the Japanese people anyway. So if you ever leave Japan, if you stay here more than 3 years, you're basically losing, unless you travel to a country that has a pension treaty with Japan, such as New Zealand does not have, but Australia has. So if I were to leave Japan, it'd be much more in my interest to move to Australia, because I could have the balance of my pension savings transferred to a pension savings scheme in Australia, through which I could receive the money that I've contributed in Japan and get it back there. Whereas if I went to New Zealand, I'd just get the 3-year payment. And then, New Zealand covers pensions by taxes, so it's a different sort of a system. But yeah, depending on where you go, where you leave the country to, it's kind of this thing that, yeah, you can get it, but you gotta stay here until you reach retirement age. And you can get it. You don't need to be a permanent resident. You can be here on a working visa somehow for that long, if that's the case. But if you leave here a day before you're eligible, tough luck. So yeah, it's complicated, but I hope that answers your question, the Condor. That's my understanding of it. The rules change all the time, but that's my latest understanding. Understandably not wanting to pay for doppelgangers. Tim the Asian Inc. Train them all in Aikido. They do, seriously. And again, I wouldn't want to be a train station worker, but they're pretty good at that sort of stuff. But, but again, the whole way, the cops do this as well in Japan. They don't come in with tasers and batons or anything. Their styles are Aikido style, right? They actually, they're physically strong and forceful, but it's all sort of passive. They won't come beating on you. But there again, you resist, you're going to get in trouble. But again, just the fact that station workers have to put up with this stuff, often kids. At least police are trained for it. So yeah. Okay, next story. Boom. Speaking of police, when police run out of budget to fight crime, the Ueno, the train station, or not train station, the police station in Ueno, to celebrate the birth of baby twin pandas, has decided to create a new police mascot that looks like this. There's a lot of budget. Again, wonderful that the police here, be it through conformity or for a 99% conviction rate, that basically if they say that you did it, they don't even have to work anymore. You just are going to be convicted. You don't have to even produce evidence for it. And that's not, there are no juries, remember. Or I think there are jury trials now, but they're very, very rare. So yeah, all that spare money that would have been spent on policing, who knows, maybe facial recognition is going to save them the budget that they can pay for more of these panda statues. But apparently they're celebrating the birth of the baby pandas in Ueno with these new adorable police panda statues. Again, don't mess with them, but just like real life, right? You wouldn't pick a fight with a real panda. What sort of person would fight with a real panda, right? But yeah, they have lots of, probably from all of maybe they sold the umbrellas that got donated, perhaps. I think that's how perhaps they funded it. Yeah, Japan leading the world in crime-fighting police panda statue technology, as usual. Thought that was an important story that I wanted to share. I see there have been some more comments. Iraq 299, the UK also doesn't have an agreement about pensions, so you also would be screwed. Well, you just have to stay here. It's easy. By the way, that's literally what they told me. I remember asking this question at the pensions office 15 years ago. And they sort of said, I said, if I leave the country right now, do I only get 3 years back? And they're like, well, not if you stay until you retire. I got this wonderfully optimistic lady across the counter who just said, no, you just have to stay here for another 45 years. You'll be fine. And it's probably going to be longer than that. So, yeah. And sorry to hear that if you're from UK, SOL, if that's what applies to you anyway. So yeah. King and Codus, 100%. You don't pay the pension here because you pay in Australia. They accept that. Working for an AU company remotely here, so it works. Oh, there you go. I mean, glad to hear you got an arrangement with that, particularly if you're not planning to stay here forever. I don't really have a plan. I guess that's my situation. But yeah, if you've got a plan to go back, that definitely makes the most sense. 270 AJ, Michael Francese, former mafia guy in the US, said in one of his videos, he has videos, there's a bit of a problem with the omerta happening there, I think, in YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Does the omerta, does Cosa Nostra now include like and subscribe? Said in one of his videos that people in prison crave for respect. It's always best to use please, excuse me, and thank you. Yes, and I understand that in prison in the Cosa Nostra, but in a club at an Okinawan university, it doesn't really justify hydrochloric acid attack, if you ask me. I'm a bit liberal about these things, perhaps, but yeah, definitely in the Cosa Nostra, yeah, I would probably, I would probably be pulling out the Han Solo, your worshipfulness, and not sarcastically. I would be saying it seriously. So yeah, Iraq 299. You can move abroad and keep paying into the Japanese pension system and then draw on it in retirement. Oh, is that right? I didn't realize that. Although honestly, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that, but yeah, you're right. Maybe it does make sense. What do the yellow bands say on the pandas? What do they say? I doubt it's got the resolution for me to see, and it was a video, and I know that playing videos on this will mess stuff up. I see what we've got. Hang on a sec, scrolling down. I think I saw there was a photo down below. It's probably little Crime Stoppers. Ugh. Kotsu Anzen, that's saying traffic safety. So yeah, she's saying, I'm going to give you a parking ticket, MF. I think that's what they're saying. Thank you for asking. Kang and Kodos, the trick is to only renew your visa for 1 year and it works. Don't even have to file a tax return here that way. Yeah, that works, but after about 20 years, there are some famous cases of people doing visa runs and getting into trouble with that. So yeah, you don't want to. In my case, I'm a permanent resident, so I don't want to mess with that too much. But certainly, if you're in a position to do that, yeah, makes a lot of sense. Personally, I feel like I have to disclaim: get some advice. You don't want to find out you've broken the law or get into trouble or anything like that. But if it works, it sounds like a good solution. Yeah, the Mizuho. I've talked about the Mizuho IT system. The ATMs that just keep going down all the time. Happened again the other week. Again, this is what happens when you have all of the mega banks. This all comes back to, I suppose I could blow the story out. This comes back down to the No Pants Shabu Shabu restaurant scandal from the 1990s. I've told this one before, right? How the banking bad loan inspectors were paid off by different banks by making it known that if you take me to a specific shabu shabu restaurant in the Kabukicho red light district where there are mirrors on the floors and all the waitresses don't wear underwear, we will tell you the surprise inspection date so that you can prepare your books and hide your bad debts, which led to the Japanese banking system hiding the debts for so long that all of the major Japanese banks collapsed in the late 90s, which led to the forced amalgamation of those banks into mega banks, one of which was Mizuho, others being Mitsubishi UFJ, Sumitomo. And all of these banks shared in common that they were shotgun weddings enforced by the government for banks that hated each other. And departments were forced to merge that hated each other. And among these acrimonious shotgun weddings, the Mizuho wedding was the worst. They genuinely hate, all the component banks hated each other so much that the IT department set out on an internal war where they refused to link their systems, so that if you had an IT card from one of the member banks, they would actually, for many, many years, you could only use it in specific ATMs. There goes the light again. Because they were basically fighting. And the IT project to unify the IT systems was actually being undermined by the employees of the banks actually sabotaging the systems for a long time, and different IT vendors screwing it up. And this has been going on for more than 20 years, actually 25 years, I think now. And still they're having IT problems. The government said that they're going to intervene to make them get their act together, which I guess means they're going to ask them to plug it in and turn it on and turn it off again. I don't know what that means, but again, they're going to undergo state oversight. But just an absolute train wreck. Again, I've said this before. This would be a fantastic book. I think there are several books about like just the IT department of Mizuho and just how messed up it's been for the last 25 years. This is like blockbuster movie stuff, like some of the stuff that comes out, the stories that come out from the project teams there, and they still can't get their stuff right. Speaking of IT projects, I have I've worked in IT for many years in Japan. Apparently there is a thread here. Will the pictures loading? There are too many pictures, but they've got these Yakuza movie like meme photos and Japanese IT project things heard on Japanese IT projects, mainly from the perspective of customers dealing with IT companies that sound like gangsters. Oh, come on, you got to show the pictures. Let me see if I can get this to load. If I can't, I'm probably just going to skip it because we are up on time. Oh, but some of these quotes are so good. I mean, some of these frequently heard on IT projects. There's a longer list, and this is not loading as it should. Oh, duh. Come on, Suzuki Yomu. No, not Apide Yomu. Suzuki Yomu. Let me try this one more time. Just going to load it again. If this fails, it fails. Well, I'll just read what's on here anyway. Some of these things. So, for example, IT outrage. Update this. So, それお客様に言っちゃったの? Oh my god, you didn't say that to the customer, did you? Yeah, frequently heard. こっち言われた通り作ったんだよ. This is again, the photo, you'd have to see the photos. So this is my old outdated iPhone is the cause of this. I'm using it for the screen sharing, but there are some great captions on this where it's got basically Beat Takeshi with a gun pointed to his head and he's saying, I just made it the way that you told me to make it. I mean, some of these are like ulcer inducing. I've been in all of these situations. Hey, does anyone here know how to program SQL SQL? There were some great ones here. It's like, no, we're not going to do a scope extension on the amount that you're paying us or whatever. Also, they're just great, like framed as Yakuza movie quotes, things frequently heard on IT projects in Japan, and it's very true, not just in Japan. Super interesting. Just going to push through to the end here that the day after China said it was going to apply to join the TPP, Taiwan applied to join the TPP. Of course, partly because if China gets in, they're going to blackball Taiwan, obviously. In fact, I mean, like you take, again, the whole idea of the TPP, it's trading, it's agreed rules and norms that they're going to agree to abide by for trade. We all know how China is with like following rules on trade. I mean, Japan has seen the wrath of it with rare earths. Australia's seen the wrath of it with wine. Taiwan's seen the wrath of it with pineapples and whatnot. You take the Samsung, not Samsung, Huawei, the person who was basically admitted in a PowerPoint presentation that they were breaching US sanctions and was detained for extradition in Canada. And the result that China detained some English teachers and put one of them on death row. And then the moment that the extradition trial was basically sort of let go, the other day China released the two other people who it insisted were unconnected cases. Just total like old-fashioned just hostage gangster diplomacy. So you've got China there and you've got Taiwan that's actually quite a nice country and follows all the rules and gets a really hard, same population as Australia, and gets a really hard time and deserves to be treated with some respect. So I would love to see Taiwan included in that. Another thing I talked the other week about the problem with sounds like my middle name is James. And the problem as to whether you say James with an I or you just say James or you say James, whether you say it with a little upward I or if you just say it flat like a James or as a James, James. And most outlets for brain fog, when this expression came out, most said brain fog, so brain fog, but the Yomiuri went with brain fog. And the problem is it does sound almost the same. So you can katakanize it, in Japanese differently, which causes just nightmares when you've got a name like James. And it can be plausibly katakanized 4 different ways, using the I or the extended E, as well as with the end, whether you do an S or a Z on the end. It's very confusing. So, yeah. Final one for tonight is apparently some groups that support hikikomori shut-ins in Japan are asking that people not call them hikikomori anymore. They want us to call them shakai teki kyori shokogun, which is social distancing syndrome. Again, it feels a little bit like this is one of those things where, in a way you're creating a new discriminatory term by stigmatizing the existing sort of normalized term. And making it stigmatized and trying to replace it with a much more inconvenient name that's going to basically encourage people to use hikikomori in a more derogatory way. But yes, that is what it is. Those are all the topics tonight. I'm going to dive into and just see if I can catch up any interesting comments. If you've got any final comments for me before I wrap up, hit me. Reach out, say Hiko Simon, and I will stop and I will read it. But nice to see. I think I saw Dan H joining in the comments there. The Condor, do I think that the US should protect Taiwan independence from China? Well, for a start, it doesn't technically protect independence. It just protects Taiwan. It just helps Taiwan maintain its security. And it guaranteed that when it was still the KMT, and it claimed the rest of China as well. It's not a question whether America does help guarantee Taiwan's security, and that's a good thing, and it should continue to guarantee Taiwan's security as it currently does. That's why those troops are down there in Okinawa. Okinawa, suffers for those troops down there in Okinawa, but those people are there to basically make sure that South Korea and Taiwan continue to exist as they do, and the region doesn't go into flames. And we should appreciate the U.S. forces who are down there doing that for it. So, in my opinion, the Americans shouldn't change their position that they are basically ensuring that whatever happens between Taiwan and China, whether that's independence. But again, America officially discourages Taiwanese independence because, frankly, that's going to light the candle on Chinese aggression. And the point is, America's policy is, at least its stated policy, is that it wants China and Taiwan to sort out its business peacefully, and its interest there is in maintaining peace there, which China is lately taking increasing offense to because it sees the right to use force as within its rights, given that it sees Taiwan as part of its territory. But of course, that's not practically true. Personally, I think Taiwan has been a de facto real country, for a long time. And it should be allowed to claim independence if it wants it. But of course, it's very cautious about doing that for all of the above reasons. But should America guarantee Taiwan's security? Yes, it should. It should be there to make sure that whatever happens, if Taiwan wants to rejoin China, it should be able to do that peacefully. And it officially discourages Taiwan from seeking independence because it doesn't want to have to jump into a war there. But it can't really support independence. That's not America's position. But the idea that it can retain the kind of independence that it has is, yes, I think that's a good thing. And Japan should support it too. Cobra Stenchi. Dan H. Sorry I wasn't here early. No problem. I am in the Iranian part of Mayfair. I didn't realize that there was an Iranian part of Mayfair, although I imagine when you say Iranian, if it's in Mayfair, I imagine they probably call themselves Persians. That's a funny. I know very little about Taiwan, about Iran, but I understand that there is that sort of exiled, wealthy Persian community that doesn't really identify with the post-1978 Iran. Interesting. Wow, you're in the Iranian part of Mayfair. I'm sure there's great food there. Have covered the Fukushima studies show wildlife is doing nicely without humans that came out recently. I haven't seen those, although it's funny. I've read similar sort of studies or seen similar studies about the Chernobyl area of Ukraine. And similar thing. It makes total sense, of course, given that there are no people there. It's probably been a net positive for the environment in a way, I suppose, not having people there. But interesting. Good to have you in here, Dan H. Scrolling down, the Jvlog. Kyle is another one because I'm translated into frog or return. So funny. I totally. I'm sorry. I'm no longer keeping up. I didn't get that one, but I hope I figure it out. AV84K. I look kind of like Eddie from Bottom. I'm a big Rick Mail fan. When I used to do public speaking in New Zealand, and I had more of a Kiwi accent. My public speaking voice was a hybrid of John Cleese and Rick Mail. I never really thought of myself as Eddie, but now that you say it, yeah, I kind of get it. I'll take that as a compliment. Bottom is an underappreciated series. Cobras Tenshi, but hikikomoris use the term themselves. Well, I don't know, maybe it's like the N-word for shut-ins. I guess that's what it's going to become. It's like you can only use it in rap music if you are actually a shut-in yourself. It just gets too complicated at that point. I mean, the fact is there isn't a lot of hikikomori rap out there at the moment, but maybe this is where it starts. Who knows? I think that's the end of the comments we've got for tonight. But yeah, look, thanks everyone. As always, 10 minutes over. I guess it's becoming like the standard time, but I do appreciate everyone keeping company. I do appreciate the interaction and great comments. You even remember, as always, you're welcome to disagree with me. It's actually something I enjoy about the show. I hope you take I'm here to express my opinions, but it's all in good sport. You know, I definitely don't believe that I'm right about everything. I just have my own opinion. Aaron RLN, when are we hitting the bars on Roppongi? Probably in about 3 years. Nice to have you in the comments. Thanks everybody. Remember, as always, if you enjoyed the show, please put a like down below. Remember, I have nowhere to go. I've got nothing else to do. I have no life basically. So I am back. I'm on Twitter all week, and I'm here at 10:30 p.m. every Sunday night, Japan Standard Time. So come back and join me. Have a good week, everybody. Stay safe. Take good care of yourself, and have a good one. Boom. Peace. Hit that like. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And have a good week. Boom. See you later.